All right, everybody, welcome back to Galt's Garage. Today we're going to be building an oxy-acetylene rig. As you can see on the table here, we have our oxygen and acetylene tanks on the left. We have our Victor Esab Former Edge Series 2.0 torch kit. Then we have a hand truck. It's going to be used to move the oxy-acetylene rig around so it's portable. And all the components I need to modify that hand truck to make it a functional and proper oxy-acetylene rig. Let's get into it. Now, as you can see here, what I'm using is a tray, and this will be mounted higher up on the hand truck. It's where we put where we store the torch, where we store the tips, tip cleaners, striker. As you can see, this is stainless steel. It's the right size, and it's going to work perfect for what we need it for, but I think we're going to have to make this thing black so it at least matches the hand truck. I'm just going to score the surface of the stainless steel so the paint sticks a little better. Since I'm using a rattle can, a little spray paint, this real smooth, slick surface is going to be prone to peeling. So we're just going to rough it up a little bit with some emery cloth. This is medium grit emery cloth. We'll say it's only probably an inch out. Just kind of like with There you go. I'm going to concentrate this. You're going to look something that it can be difficult. So I'm going to go on next time. I want to do this part first, so hopefully I don't have to rest it. Right. And the nice thing about these holes is we'll be able to use those to hold this when we paint it. Let's do a little unboxing video with this torch kit here. Now this is the Victor Esab Performer Edge Series 2.0. Let's see what we have in here. Now you probably noticed a couple of things are out of position. That's because as nice as this packaging is, it doesn't handle bouncing down the road in your front seat very well. So we have our rosebud for heating metal. Got our brazing tip for doing brazing or welding. And we have the cutting tip here. We're going to test this out today when we're done putting this whole thing together. Got your starter sparker here, your starter striker. These are notoriously not great. I don't know about the Victor ones, but a lot of kits, the strikers that come with them are trash and they break apart your first day, so I went and picked up a spare just in case this one doesn't make the grade. Here's your torch handle. The old how do you use this thing book. Here's our acetylene regulator. And this is made for a CA510 fitting. Unfortunately, I went and bought a bottle with a CA520 head, so I had to get an adapter for it. This adapter is meant to take it from a CA520 down to a CA510. But we'll see if this is all right today. And here's the CGA 540 oxygen regulator. It has a 540 fitting on it. We have our tip cleaning kit here. There we go. And these are all the various tip cleaners you might need. You know, when you do cutting, you get a lot of spatter, and that spatter will eventually clog your tip, and you'll have to get it cleaned out, or you're not going to be able to cut right anymore. We have the factory visor goggles, the shaded goggles. And the first part of this kit that's going to be replaced, a 12-foot oxyacetylene hose. This is ridiculous. I don't know why anybody would ever package a 12-foot hose. That's virtually useless. First thing we're going to do is put the regulators on the bottles, and then we're going to move to hooking the torch heads up to the other end of the hose, and then we will plug the hose into the regulators, and we'll be in business. Hopefully by then, our tray for the back of the hand truck will be dry, the paint, and we can get this all done today. Fingers crossed. It's actually a surprising amount of dust in there, considering it had a dust cap on. But as you can see, these brand new cylinders that I bought from Farm and Fleet. Anybody from the Midwest, you'll probably be familiar with Farm and Fleet. These are brand new cylinders from Farm and Fleet. It really is just an exchange program. You pay for ownership of a bottle and you just trade it in when it's empty. So I did a dry fit, and everything appears to be right with this adapter. It does seem like it screws into the bottle just fine, and it screws into the regulator just fine. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing threaded on here. Try and get you a little more in frame so you can see exactly what we're doing. Now, when you're dealing with gas fittings like this, these fittings are machined for a flush surface, no sealants. You do not want to use sealants on your oxyacetylene. The brass is machined for a flush fit on the inside of this fitting, and inside of here, and inside of here. And it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a little bit of a rounded surface here. It's very, very smooth. It looks rougher than it is. And this is going to fit. You really can't tell by looking in here. I'm looking at it with my own eyes and I can barely tell, but when you put your finger in here, you can feel there's a sort of conical, spherical shape to the inside here. It's meant to flush fit the end of this. You don't need to murder these fittings, but you do want them on there fairly tight. An important thing to remember when you're mounting these, you want to make sure that you're mounting the gauges in an orientation that you can read. So you're not going to want to put these gauges like that. So make sure the gauges are oriented in a way where you can read the pressures on them. And another thing to remember, they're threaded backwards. Oh man, could have been there all day. You want to orient these gauges so you'll be able to see them easier. And since this is a short tank, that's an issue I'll address later on down the road. I will be upgrading this tank eventually. The problem with using a smaller tank, it's not that big of a deal on the acetylene side. It's a much bigger problem on the oxygen side because you burn through a lot more oxygen, particularly when you're cutting. And when you're cutting, you cook through oxygen. That's why I got a bigger bottle of the oxygen. But that being said, I still need to get a little bit bigger bottle for the acetylene. This is a number 2 bottle, and that's a number 4 oxygen bottle. So I'll at least upgrade to a number 3. But for now, let's get this all functional, and we'll deal with that when the time comes. So there you have it. It's that simple. Now we're hooked up to our bottle. It actually has, you can probably see it there, a little screen in the tip. That screen is meant to catch, it's a brass, like a porous brass sponge screen. Good Lord, that's a tongue twister. It's meant to catch larger particulate that could be dangerous in the line. Okay, should be good. Now you will notice on the torch handle, you'll see right here it says, let me get something to point with. You'll see right here it says F, that's your fuel line. That's going to be your acetylene line or propane line depending on what kind of fuel you're using. And this one says O, that'll be your oxygen line. Sometimes these knobs will be color coded. I'll probably throw a dab of red paint on this one and a red paint on this one and green on this one, just so it's a little easier visually. Once your hoses are hooked up, the first time it's usually pretty straightforward. Just follow the colors, but I will probably throw some paint on here just to make it a little easier to not screw it up. Now your green is always your oxygen, so make sure your green is going to the one that's marked O, at least on this particular Victor torch. And your red will be your fuel. Make sure that's going to F. And again, it will be backwards threaded. So it is, really, it is idiot proofed already. But I'm sure I could defeat it with a big enough wrench. And again, you just want to make it nice and tight. You don't have to murder it. Just about everything you're going to deal with on a torch setup is brass, so it's softer than steel. There is a danger of deforming it, so that is really important to not murder it when you tighten it down. Okay, and here we have the barrel of the main body, and we're going to do the torch today, the cutting torch, so we will be putting this attachment on. And the torch is ready, so it's ring. How'd you like to get it off on the same side? Now we'll throw our tip on. And this is, I believe, a number 3 tip, which for most of the cutting you're going to do for home gamers like myself. I mean, all my serious cutting I do at work, but I think number 3 is probably going to be good for most of you. We'll try it out. I'm not sure what I'm going to cut today. I've got some 1.5-inch plate. I may try to do 1.5-inch plate just to see exactly what it's capable of. If it can do an 1.5-inch plate, it's going to do anything you need to do around the house, and then some. Now, an interesting thing, if you look in here, you'll see that the big center hole is surrounded by 6 smaller holes. Those 6 smaller holes supply the fuel to the 6 corresponding holes on the front end. And then your big center hole is your oxygen. That's what's going to be blowing the slag out as you make your cut. Make sure you hang on to these. Some places are very particular about taking exchange bottles if you do not have the cap. So now let's get our hand truck ready. We're going to make some modifications to this hand truck so that it is suitable to use an oxyacetylene. When you're working with oxyacetylene, you need to have chains to hold your bottles in. That's just the way it is. I think the reason they go with chains instead of straps is you're working with flame that can be thousands of degrees hot. The last thing you want to do is have a piece of stray slag or ember melt through your 2,000-pound working load limit vinyl strap, and all of a sudden you've got a 4-foot tall solid steel missile shooting through everything you own. So we just use chain because it's not going to melt. So I think first things first, let's get these stickers off of here. Apparently Milwaukee's making hand trucks. I will tell you that even though these are made in Wisconsin, it's a different Milwaukee. Milwaukee tools are actually made in China or Vietnam or just about any country except America. They're owned by a company called TTI, the same company that makes Ryobi and a handful of Rigid, handful of other brands you've probably heard of here in the States. Now I bought enough chain to put chains in 2 spots. I'm going to do one down here kind of low because this acetylene bottle is pretty short. And then I will do a second chain, probably somewhere up in this area. So it's very important here to size out your chain. You're going to need your 2 bottles in place so you know exactly how much chain you need. And we're going to go a couple extra links on each side only because I plan on upping the size of these bottles somewhere down the road. So you're going to set the bottles on the hand truck where they will sit once you have your whole rig put together. And now we're going to go ahead and mark our spots. Since we're going to be drilling in a round stock, we're going to use a center punch. This is an automatic center punch, and you push down on it. When you push down on it, it'll hit a point where it releases. Puts a nice little ding right where you want it. So my mark is just a hair off the center line. And we're just going to give her a little push until it clicks. And I like to double up on it just to make sure. And then we'll take an actual punch and just give her a couple whacks. And that should help center that drill bit. of heat from the heat gun, and we're in business. I think what we're going to do is just put 2 bolts in the center. Look at these outsides floppy. The other option, pinch them in. I don't think I want to do that. Maybe down the road, change my mind on this. But for now, I think we're just going to do that. Ah, you son of a bitch. That is the absolute worst case scenario right there. Bent the shit out of it. And we push it right out of the freaking hole. Well, this is never going to look awesome again. But that's okay. We don't really need it to look awesome. Be nice. Okay, so first things first, hook up our fuel. And again, this line is backwards threaded. Oh my goodness. Back up, guys. Okay, that's that. You're going to have your striker in here. You're going to have your tip cleaners in here. These are really important. You got to keep, you always want a set of those around. I'm probably going to keep my other torch heads in here. Some people put them in a cabinet. It's probably honestly a better way to do it. And your good old shaded goggles. I don't usually keep those in the cart. These things go to crap so fast they make your head spin. They are not built to last. Okay, we are going to set our pressures now. I'm going to get you guys off the stand so I can show you. So with the oxygen flowing, we're sitting right about 25 psi. That's kind of where I like to be. Maybe a hair low. Yeah, we're about right. Okay. Now we're going to shut down all our oxygen valves here. Now our oxygen pressure level is set. We're going to go down to our acetylene. This is going to be a little weird because they sold me the cylinder without a valve on it. I mean, it's got the valve, but it doesn't have the handle to open and close it. And that is problematic because, and this is really important, whenever you're done using your torches, if you're going to step away for a couple hours or overnight or a week, you always want to make sure that you close these valves. That is mission critical. If you got any kind of leak in here at all, and you work in a garage or any kind of, really anywhere, if you got a leak, it's going to empty your cylinders, best case scenario. Worst case scenario, it's going to blow something up. Took a bigger wrench. Couldn't hold the camera and do it. But here we have this tank open now. I gotta tell you, very disappointed in Farm and Fleet. Didn't even get a full bottle in this crappy condition, no less. All right, so what we're going to do is very similar to what we did with the oxygen. We're going to crank open the fuel valve. Crank that fuel valve all the way open. I like to cut with 5 pounds on my acetylene line, so we're going to adjust this up to 5. There we go. There's 3, 4, and there's 5. Okay. Oh, easy now. Quit getting goofy on me. Okay. You can hear the acetylene coming out. So, we're going to shut down our valve. Now what we got to do, just because this is the first time we've hooked it all up, what we're going to do is close these valves. We'll close them all the way. We'll let them sit for a few minutes. Make sure they don't bleed down on the gauges. That way we know there's no leaks in the system. So we're going to come back and we want to make sure that our supply side is still at 200 psi and our output is still at, a hair over 6. And then it's the same thing on the oxygen. I already turned these off. So we'll want to make sure that the oxygen is still sitting at it's about 1850. And yeah, roughly 25-30 pounds on the output side. So we'll come back and check these in a couple minutes. All right, there you go. It's not the most amazing cut in the world, but that's me. That's not the torch. Like I said, I got a decent amount of experience with the acetylene torch, but I am no master. So, works good. Piece looks in decent shape. And nobody blew up, so big win.